Growing up, I was what many of you might have called a spirited child. I had insatiable curiosity, enough energy to flip a truck, and regarded most rules more like light suggestions, many of which I politely declined. And in those early 90s, surrounded by the swath of OG Disney princesses and other more traditionally feminine characters, I found it rather challenging to find a role model with whom I could authentically resonate with. That was until I met her. Pippi Longstocking. Living unsupervised in a big house at just 9 years old, Pippi's life was an expression of freedom, adventure, and authenticity that I had yet to see portrayed in other genders, or portrayals of my gender. She showed me that life and people were far too multidimensional to fit inside one single box, that I could question norms, scale trees, and still throw impeccably curated backyard tea parties. And at 8 years old, I wanted to be just like her. And so I was, for 5 Halloweens in a row. And while I would eventually let down my braids and allow other characters to come guide me through those very specific teenage years, I'm certain that it was Pippi's story that gave me the inspiration and the courage to chart my own non-traditional life path as a TV and film producer, where for the past 17 years, my life has been a pretty epic adventure. My work has taken me from the backwoods of Appalachia to the halls of Saturday Night Live, from prison writers' workshops to Hollywood film lots, from Wyoming cowboy conventions to the floor of the United Nations. And while I have learned and unlearned more than I could ever possibly convey in the short time allotted for this talk, there is one thing I have experienced across all of my adventures, and that is so many of us are holding strong beliefs about people, places, and communities that we are learning about almost exclusively through the media. And in this excessively digital age, where offline opportunities to really get to know people outside of our immediate circles are becoming increasingly rare, the stories we share and consume on our screens do more than just entertain us. They shape and define the boundaries of what we believe about each other and what we believe is possible in our physical world. Because the stories we consume, both consciously and subconsciously, they shape our beliefs. And these beliefs inspire our thoughts, which influence our emotions, which guide the actions we either take or don't take in our physical worlds. And so from this perspective, TV and film is more than just a medium in which to escape or even reflect back our reality. It is also one of our greatest tools with which to shape our reality. So let's take a look at what kind of stories have been shaping our beliefs lately. Over the past decade, there has been a massive rise in narratives focusing in on the darkest aspects of our humanity, overexposing us to one dimension of who we are and what we are capable of. Since 2018, the production of true crime documentaries alone has gone up by over 147%. And that is because these stories can be a lot of fun to watch. The primal rush accompanying many of them release dopamine, our brain's neurotransmitter for feeling good, which also make these narratives really addictive. And while that dopamine hit feels great, these narratives also come with some other, far less enjoyable, lingering after effects, like cortisol spikes, increased stress, and heightened anxiety. These narratives are so pervasive across all of our media landscape that research out of the University of Pennsylvania has even coined a term for the affliction that occurs when one consumes too much media. It's called mean world syndrome. The phenomena where we believe the world and each other to be far more violent, dangerous, and untrustworthy than we actually are. So many of the TV and film pitch rooms that my team and I enter ask us to imagine how we can make the content darker. And there's no blame in that sentence. It's the distributor's job to get eyes in front of screens, and they are doubling down on a tale as old as time. If it bleeds, it leads. But what if one of the primary reasons why people are consuming such large volumes of darker themed narratives is because there aren't a lot of other options on the menu? Imagine if, alongside our stories of danger and hardship and struggle, we were equally exposed to narratives of hope, resilience, and innovation. Positive psychology and hope theory show us that while fear and hope can each trigger significant spikes in action, hope does a far better job at sustaining that action over time. Balancing our mainstream media with more empowered and uplifting narratives isn't just a nice to have or a sweet idea. It is a highly strategic tool for giving us the energy necessary for us to not just rise to the occasion, but complete the task. I believe in this so fully that in 2022, I have started a production company based solely on this mission. TV and film give us the opportunity to meet people outside of our media bubbles. And for many of us, TV and film is the only way we are getting to know people who are really different from us. Fortunately, this may actually work in our favor. Whereas people might be less comfortable and less confident to go outside their circles and connect with people in the physical world, a mountain of studies, like those out of the University of Cologne and Northwestern, show us that just the act of observing positive intergroup dynamics and diverse representations through our screens is actually the most effective way to minimize prejudice and bias in our physical world. Psychologists call this concept vicarious contact. And one of my favorite examples of this comes from the TV series Modern Family. Modern Family, which aired for over 11 seasons from 2009 to 2020, invited viewers into the intimate lives of everyday American families, including a gay couple and their daughter. Studies that tracked regular viewers of this series showcased an increased attitude towards LGBTQ+ individuals and a greater support for gay rights. I have experienced this phenomena many times over the course of my career. But without a doubt, one of the most meaningful and transformative experiences were the 3 years that I spent producing and co-hosting the docuseries Returning the Favor. Filming over 100 episodes from the beginning of 2017 through the end of 2020, my team and I traveled across 47 states, intimately shadowing, surprising, and then returning the favor to everyday Americans, giving back to their communities in meaningful ways. During what was being called one of the most divisive times in American history, our series showed people reaching across the ideological divides to work towards the missions that transcend our political lines. The opioid crisis, housing insecurity, food insecurity, mental health. I was constantly surprised and constantly humbled by just how wrong and just how limited my own media-learned perceptions were of these communities prior to arriving. But what gave me the most hope was just how effectively these more multidimensional depictions of our subjects reached across the screens to our viewers. Not only did our series amass viral status, raking in nearly 1 billion viewers, it also created enormous real-world impact, like the creation of over 2,000 nonprofit chapters and millions of dollars in donations towards featured solutions. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average 90-year-old will spend 10 years of their life consuming TV and film. That is an entire decade dedicated to absorbing the narratives that shape who we are and how we view the world. As audiences and storytellers, we do have agency. We can either continue to feed the status quo, or we can expand our narrative to tell a more whole and honest story of us. A space big enough to showcase both our very real capacity for darkness and our very real capacity for light. Hollywood can lead this charge, but changing the media landscape is going to require more than just good intentions. It's going to require collaboration, creativity, and small but persistent shifts. The narratives that we consume and tell today will craft the realities that we live in tomorrow. And we can't be what we don't see. Just as my younger self found tremendous inspiration in the fearless spirit of Pippi Longstocking, we also need stories that showcase and reflect back our very real potential for problem solving. Because when we believe something is possible, that belief makes it possible. So the next time you're about to click, I urge us all to ask ourselves, is the story I'm about to consume going to help me arrive where I want to go? Thank you.
Thank you.